Hello, amazing parents and caretakers, and welcome to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. I'm your family empowerment coach, Celia Kibler. I'm a mom of a blended family of 5 kids. I'm a grandma of 9 kids, an author, a teacher, a speaker, and a consultant with over 40 years of training and real-life parenting experience. I'm here to offer you practical, doable tips, strategies, and techniques that will pump up your parenting skills and create peace, love, and laughter throughout your family. In addition, I'll be interviewing some great humans that are on a mission to make your life a better, happier, and healthier life. So let's not waste any time and get started with the next episode of the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. Thanks for listening. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. We have a great conversation going on today because we're going to talk about our inner critic. And why is this so great? Because we all have one, and most of us are more critical about ourselves than we even want to admit. So I have an expert here to talk about that, and her name is Alyssa Scarano. And let me tell you a little bit about Alyssa before I bring her on to talk about herself. So Alyssa is the founder and clinical director of the Collective Therapy and Wellness. Known for her empathetic and compassionate approach, Alyssa views her work as a profound privilege, an opportunity to be invited into the most intimate and vulnerable parts of her clients' lives. Specializing in relationships, she is dedicated to helping individuals heal from childhood trauma, break generational patterns, and cultivate meaningful, authentic connections with others by first supporting them in fostering self-compassion. Alyssa, welcome to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast.
Thank you, Celia. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you because this is just, as the calm cultivator, I like to call myself the ambassador of calm here. This is so important because, people think of like calm and they'll be like, okay, calm is you sit on top of a mountaintop and you gaze out into the world and you are calm. But what's truth is that calm is being comfortable in your own skin. I had somebody go, well, I'm just wild and crazy. And I laugh all the time. And I could never be part of the day of calm. And I'm like, well, yes, actually, you can be fun and a happy person and still be calm. You should be fun and a happy person to be calm. And that self-critic, that thing where we tell ourselves, oh, you're such an idiot. Why did you do this? Or why are you so dumb? Or like we do it all the time without even realizing it. Mm-hmm. And it is just so important to address that and to start making people aware that they're even doing it. Mm-hmm. Because awareness, is half the battle.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to be talking about all this today with you. And I just love how you said how grateful you are that you are allowed into people's lives in their most intimate thoughts. And it is really wonderful. And it's wonderful, the work and the healing that you do. So Alyssa, can you just tell a little bit about yourself, give your website where people can reach you, and how did you get onto this journey?
Yeah. So, I love working with people with, developing healthy relationships. And my philosophy on all of it is that it all starts within, and how we treat ourselves. And how I started with this being my niche or my passion, it was really funny because I would say it was right out of grad school with my first position in the field. I was still doing my, supervised hours towards full licensure. And I swore from day one in grad school saying, I'm never going to be a family therapist. Nope. It's very hard. There's a lot of dynamics. There's so much anger in the room. I don't want to do it. And then what do you know? My first job off the gate was doing family therapy. And it was the best learning experience I could have ever had. It shaped me as a clinician. And it really shaped the way that I work with my clients, even one-on-one, because I don't do family therapy where our practice is virtual. So, but we're always working with the family dynamic. We're always working with the inner child when, even if it's one-on-one. All of the stories that we have about ourselves, who we are capable of being, and other people in the world around us based upon what our perceptions were and are from childhood. We learn through associations, right? And so we've made all these meanings about, ourselves and others from what our experiences have been, the way that people have spoken to us becomes, a pretty big influence on how we speak to ourselves. And so I really became interested in helping people move past those narratives, right? The behavior pattern of being a critic towards yourself, of, shame and guilt and comparison, in order to heal and see beyond what their learning experience has been. Perhaps that's not the whole story, you know?
Yeah.
And then the way I see it is that if we can do that with one person, right, it does then expand into that one person's outer world. We don't have
Right.
control over other people, but we do have control with how we respond.
Absolutely.
And if we don't
Absolutely.
buy in, we're breaking that pattern, right? If
Yeah.
we're not, squirming back into that younger version of ourselves that acted out of survival by making themselves smaller or not, communicating a concern or a feeling. If we're not going right back to that childhood role that we played as an adult, we're breaking the pattern regardless of how someone is acting or behaving in front of us now. And so I see it as an opportunity not just heal from childhood trauma, but to prevent it. And so that's what keeps me in the work.
Exactly. And I feel the same way. The whole key to ending all this violence and these people that are raging is to start when they're children. So that, it's like, well, everybody's going to have to recover from their childhood. Wouldn't it be nice if they didn't have to recover from their childhood? Why do we have to recover? Why can we not be proactive and create childhoods that they blossom from?
Right.
You know, and you're right, I'm always about, helping parents realize that they can create family dynamics that don't require yelling at your children. And because all that does is that then creates all those little voices we hear in our heads that, you're not good enough, or, everything you do is wrong, so nothing you do is right. And and that just expands upon this whole like belief in yourself and who you really, are to
Hmm.
you, not necessarily to others.
Hmm. Yeah, how you need to act, how you need to portray yourself, right? That I am only loved or appreciated when I'm acting or behaving or fitting into this role or, cookie cutter, look.
Right.
When in reality, that's more of a learned behavior because that's what I needed to do in order to get through it. I didn't have
Exactly.
to get away.
Exactly. I had a parent say to me, "My child actually likes to be yelled at." And I'm like, "No one likes to be yelled at. No one like they move because you're yelling at them and they're afraid of you, but they don't like to be yelled at." And it's this very warped sense you know, of feeling like you're a mind reader for other people. And we teach people, if people say something about you, "Oh, you're so difficult," it's really not about you, it's about them. And people are always projecting what they think of themselves on other people without ever taking the responsibility of, you know what, I'm difficult. I could be the problem here in this relationship.
Hmm. Yeah, or even, right, like I had to scream as a kid. I had to yell as a kid in order to be heard. So my child is not hearing me, which means I have to yell,
Right.
you know?
And it's recognizing also your role as a parent or your role in a relationship of like, people that are married or whatever the relationship, even in like a work relationship.
Mhm.
People don't realize it's all relationships. Relationships with a coworker, a friend, parent. It's, an adult child with an adult parent. All these relationships, it's so important to understand who you personally are so that you can take responsibility in healing that relationship or never even, destroying it so that it needs to be healed.
Mm.
Being the one that sets the pace for it and understanding, well, if I'm always angry or I'm always irritable, what is doing that? What is making me in this mood? What is putting me in this state?
Right, right. And that's where I think the self-awareness piece comes in, is right. It's easy as a parent. Like, I get it. I'm a parent too. It's all survival. It's we got to get out of the house. We got to, things have to get done. It's sometimes we're just kind of going through life needing to get things done and reacting. And the truth is that that self-awareness piece can open us up to, whoa, okay, this is a pattern. And this pattern began a long time ago. Or why am I, doesn't really fit with the kind of parenting that I really want to have, or the relationship I want to have with my child. So that self-awareness piece is kind of like, you're learning the roadmap, where the potholes are, where the potential vulnerabilities are, how I need to drive the car in order to get around it. I'm recognizing that it's there, but it's no longer just all on its own running the show, driving the car. I'm in control now. And so that self-awareness piece is huge. And then that's where we, then can apply new skills or a new approach or a new outlook. Um, and it's also not easy, because we're doing this from how we have been parented, so we're doing this from what our experience or association has been, and we're doing it from our own unhealed parts from childhood.
And then while you're trying to heal you, you also have other people chiming in.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
especially like in parenting. I mean, it's applicable in many areas of your life, but in parenting, especially, they're like, you may have your own parents go, why aren't you doing this? Why are you being so soft on them? Why aren't you need to buckle down? You need to do this, you need to do that. And now you feel like you're healing, but now you're criticizing, well, am I doing it the right way? And with all the information out there,
Mm,
second guessing is like
mm.
happening a lot. You lose your confidence. Like, well, I thought this was the way to go, but I don't know. I just heard this person say this. And how do you handle all that?
Right. And even from the schools, right? Or the summer camps, or who's watching our children, right? They see our child in little snippets, and they don't necessarily have the full story of what that child, developed from, and what approaches have worked or haven't worked at home. So sometimes the feedback that you get is, oh, they're being manipulative, or they just want attention, or, you just need to ignore it. When in reality, no, like that's not the case. But it can, for a parent, make them think like, I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not doing something good enough. I'm missing the point because this behavior that my kid is struggling with, or I'm struggling with at home, is not changing, right? It's my fault. I'm the parent. They're the reflection of me and
Right.
my how well I am parenting. So everybody's got all these things to say. I must be doing something wrong, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And in your mention of, my child's a reflection of me, that's so important that parents realize. And really it's like, I really make a point to tell the world that everybody is an influence of a child, an influence of child. I'm not saying that right. Everybody influences a child
Yes.
because like even if you're someone famous, you're a baseball player, or they're like watching a game, or somebody walking down the street acting irate or, obnoxious or being aggressive, or like kids are seeing that.
Hmm.
And so it's important that everybody take responsibility for themselves. Impossible to ask that everybody will. I mean, I realize that is unrealistic, but um, important that at least if you're thinking, I need to be more, I need to do something different, I'm not being the person I want to be, that you dive into it.
Mhm.
Because if you want your child to become, we have children and we dream of what they'll be like when they're adults. Because, like I always say, we're raising adults, not children. They're already children. Our job is to raise a competent, confident, self reliant, happy, fun, whatever adjective you want to put in front of them, grown up. That's our job. And it's like, but if you're not that person, you will never be able to raise that person because they are watching everything you do. And
Right.
you have to decide and it's not easy to look in the mirror. It's not
Hmm.
easy to say, they just did something I do all the time. I mean, I told them not to do it or not to say it,
Hmm.
but they did anyway. Well, because you're doing it and saying it,
Right.
and it's never easy.
Right. It's not, and there isn't, I know that this is a very common thing that we all say as parents, or we hear other parents say, or doctors say, is like, there's no handbook to this. And the truth
Well,
is
there
that
is. I wrote one. You know, So I always have to say, yes, it's right here. Raising Happy Toddlers, How to Build Great
there
Parenting
we go.
Skills and
There we
Stop
go.
Yelling at Your Kids.
Celia
Okay.
wrote it. So if you're looking for the
Sideline.
handbook, Celia wrote it. But it is a saying, right? That's out there. And the truth is,
Absolutely.
like, not to go against the handbook that Celia wrote, but sometimes it does come down to, like, even with those handbooks, right? Even with all of the information that's out there, it doesn't mean it's going to work for your child. And it also doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. And it also doesn't mean that even if it works one day, it may not work 10
Right.
minutes, right? We don't have control over what they do or how they respond because were, and will always be their own person. We only have control over what we do. And that as a parent is such a hard like thing to break because they go from being 100% reliant on us and us needing to be responsive to their needs and care for them. But all of a sudden, as a parent, I need to like worry about me. I need to center in. How? I'm just trying to make it through the day.
Right. I'm trying to
So,
be in control of myself and yet
right.
enough help my child.
Right. So that's the empathetic, like, understanding, right, of like how hard this is. But I think it does go back to like the very core of what we're talking about is that it begins within and then spreads from there. Your
Right.
child's might have a meltdown, and that one meltdown might not be the last. But it's how we respond at the end of the day that if anything will get us through it. And on to the be able to handle maybe the next one or get dinner on the table. So it really just, I think it comes back to, are we connecting to ourselves? Are we connecting to that intuition, that knowing, that, mom or dad gut saying like, this works or this fits or this is right or that for my family, this is the approach I want to take or not, and we can't do that by being reactive. We can't.
Exactly. And hopefully you're more proactive
Right.
and giving yourself grace. Like you're talking about, it's life is hectic. And I feel like it's even more hectic in the world today. We forget to slow down. We forget to, really take it easy and manage our time so that we're not living a rat race every day. Because if every day you're rushing around and getting you there one place, getting your kids another place, and it's rush, 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 your kids are going to feel all that stress. There's going to be anxiety, there's going to be irritability, and then all those inner conflicts start coming out that you're
Mhm.
trying to control because you're tired and you're stressed and you start hearing things. There are things I think all of us are like, I didn't think I would ever say this. That my mom said, I used to feel like I'm never going to say this. And then all of a sudden it comes out and you're like, oddly appropriate in this situation, though. you know?
Yep. Yep.
But
Yeah.
we all do it because all that stuff is so ingrained in us until we make an effort to turn around what we really want to turn around.
Right. And if you think about it, here's the opportunity for grace is like you were the kid that maybe the parent spoke to like that. And that's a whole nother realm, right? Because there might be lots of feelings toward mom and dad, right? But mom and dad same thing, like they might have done the best that they could at the time with the skills and tools and support that they had, right? Which is very different from nowadays. We're having conversations about this. Back then, we didn't talk. They didn't talk
Right.
about these things. There was no time for emotions. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps and keep going, right? So it was a different time. Not saying that, poor behavior or abuse or neglect is, we can rationalize it away. No, but at the same time, that's individual work to kind of process through and figure out. But at the end of the day, right, we all were children once. And as we grow up in life, that experience is so far removed. We have memories, but we have memories of how those situations that stick out made us feel, right? And so it is very much ingrained, and we don't even know necessarily it's there until it we blurt it out. And I can't believe I said that, right? That is
Right.
the child who felt helpless at that time. And consider when you're finding yourself, we find ourselves in that position, it's because what I'm doing within my toolbox is not working. I'm helpless again.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to admit. I don't mean that in a negative way, but I don't know what to do, which as parents, we often find ourselves in that
Right. We
position.
do. As parents, we all have those moments. The pressure builds up, the noise gets too much, and before we know it, we're raising our voices higher than we ever intended. But what if there was a better way? Introducing 21 Days to Stop Yelling at Your Kids, a revolutionary program designed to help you communicate with your children without yelling. Imagine a home filled with understanding and respect, where your words have impact without the need to raise your voice. Created through my over 40 years of experience, this course offers you practical, easy to implement strategies that work in real life. You'll learn through interactive lessons, engaging exercises, and a supportive community. No judgments, just guidance. Because being a parent doesn't have to mean you're perfect. It's about growing, and it's about becoming intentional. In just 21 days, life will be calmer and more harmonious. What if you don't get the course? Where will you be in 21 days? Still feeling like a bad parent? I encourage you to join the millions of parents that I have helped who have found a new path to communication and connection. Visit quityelling.com to enroll in the 21 Days to Stop Yelling course today. And for our podcast listeners, use the code PODCAST for a 60% discount. Quityelling.com, because love speaks so much louder than yelling. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side.
Maybe daily.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of it's because everything's just moving so fast that we don't even have time to pause and think about what we're doing. We're
Yeah.
just doing.
Right.
And it is, it's so important. And it's not, like you said before, it's not easy. But we're not even trying to say any of this is easy.
Right.
But how you'll feel about yourself after you've gone through the work of really examining the way you honestly think about yourself
Right.
is going to be so much better. Because these things, oh, well, I just called myself stupid because, I spilled something or something. But what you don't realize is you actually think of yourself as stupid. When you say things like that, you actually think of yourself that way. And like, no, I just said it because of that. Like people will make all kinds of excuses. Oh, I said it, that what? Because of this, because of this, because of this. But it's the deep, work done winds up uncovering that, yeah, I actually think I'm stupid. I actually think I'm an idiot. I think I'm incompetent. I think I'm difficult with other people. All
Yeah.
that stuff comes out, and that's not easy to
Hmm.
understand. But once you've noticed it and found it, then you can work on feeling better about yourself.
Right. And even being aware about where all of this is coming from, right? I think that's part of it is like we're living in a world, first of all, that is very um reactionary, right? Like a lot of us nowadays are very much back in that state of survival because of, economic and situations and how financially things are hard or whatever the case may be, right? That
Right,
you as a parent, we as a parents are facing. And the truth is that everything is kind of just hardwired to be reactionary, good or bad, right?
correct.
Um, so now that being said, it's thinking about what we're doing before we're doing it, or even as we're doing it, or reflecting, right? And if, we're not always going to get it right because we're not
Right,
perfect, and it's okay not to be perfect. Like that's important for our kids to learn too, because they're not always going to be perfect. And then what? What do I do? How do I repair this? Can I repair it? Yes, because I've modeled how to repair it,
right. There's
right?
there's power in the progress. That's
Hmm.
what you have to see, the progress over perfection. Because
Hmm.
first of all, perfection's impossible. Nobody's perfect. We're all human, and trying to reach to be perfect is an impossible goal.
Right.
But if you're making progress and you're able to start healing and seeing things in a different light and recognizing your responsibility and control over you and not necessarily over somebody else, things do begin to change and do start feeling better.
Yeah. And I have an example, I think, of how this really shows up. And it shows up even in our relationship with our partner, with our family members, anyone really at work, like you said. But I'm going to frame it in sense of like, say it's your child, right? And you can't get them to listen to you, right? Or they're not listening. Let's put it that way. They're not listening and they're still doing the thing and it's causing all these other things, right? And sure, yeah, it's frustrating and we're frustrated with them because in our head, right, reactionary, they're the problem. They're not listening, right? And that
Right.
doesn't help if you've got the school calling saying like they're doing this, right? Like doesn't help. Um, but the truth is that sure, they may not be listening, the child. That's listening is a skill. They haven't mastered it yet. And it has to be taught or honed, right? And then for some kids, maybe it's really hard because they've got, auditory processing, speeds that are a little bit slower, or they're more visual than they are verbal, or, everybody's got our own unique wiring. And yet we hold kids to these standards of it must look this way. And if you're doing this, it's bad, it's wrong, right? That right there is you're creating an inner critic for that child.
Yes.
The other piece of it is, yes, I'm frustrated with my child. Valid. Get it. I'm a parent. Yes, they are very frustrating. We could love them so much and also really be very frustrated with them.
With them.
Um, but the truth is that we're not frustrated with them. The truth is that we're frustrated with ourselves because I can't get you to listen to me.
Right.
I can't get you to change your behavior. I should be able to. Why can't I? What am I doing wrong? And then where does that come from and lead to, right? What that leads to is I'm not a good parent. I'm
Right.
not good. I'm not good enough. Who said I could do this? Why did I do this? Right. And it just can kind of spiral from there. And then the next time something happens, there we go again.
Yeah.
Right. Versus finding a way to like, yes, catch it and say, I just need to there's something that I need in this moment, just like when I was a kid, that I'm not getting. How can I give that to myself so I can give it to my child? Because they're also in need of something that they're not getting. And I don't want to continue that pattern. So in this moment, right, when I'm frustrated because my kids aren't listening to me, um, that's how it's if right, all of that. Um, all of a sudden now I really internally, emotionally, I'm back in childhood when nobody listened to me. What did I need back then? I needed to feel like I mattered. How can I give that to myself right now?
Right.
And
Right.
that's hard, but I think
And
that's like, you know,
and
go ahead.
sometimes it means you walk away.
Right.
You walk away from what's going on. You give each other permission to walk away. It doesn't mean you never discuss it. Like now we walked away, so we're never going to talk about this again. No, you plan. We're going to talk about this in 2 hours. We're going to talk about it tomorrow, whatever it is. You don't avoid it, but instead of creating a situation which you're going to later regret, walk away. I talk about an acronym that I teach that I created, which is called PEPA, like Peppa Pig, but it's only PEPA. So the extra P is for the pig. You throw that away. It's not about the pig. So, and it means pause, evaluate, plan, and act. So if you've already thought of Peppa, congratulations, you've already paused your brain. If that has come into your head, the pause happened. And sometimes that's enough to go, oh, wait a minute. Let me just see what's really going on here. Let me take a step back. Let me look at why I'm so upset or why I'm so disappointed or and then maybe you just need to sit down, go away, and like really look at this with an open mind. What can I do to help this situation? Instead
Mhm.
of screaming and yelling, what can I actually do that will help my child, my husband, my wife, my whoever, my boss, and take responsibility.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, and it's really great. We have all these conversations within the context of parenting or relationships. But if we go back to that, like everything begins within, right? If we're thinking about how, you know, just we're reacting to stress, we're being stuck in traffic, right? Like, am I just reacting to this, right? And yelling or at myself or at the world or whatever the case may be, right? That's an opportunity right there to be like, shift focus, right, onto
Right.
something that's going well, or take a deep breath, or put the radio on. You're stuck in traffic anyway, put something on that you like, you
Yeah,
know, like
exactly.
like that is the thing is that those moments where we're reacting, when you're, maybe arguing with a family member or your spouse, co-parenting is hard. Um, it's really good practice is something I tell my couples about is if you're in a conflict, and it's just circling and you're at a gridlock and it's not going anywhere, like it may be the case that you guys have to table it and come back to it,
Right.
but set a time limit. Let the other person know, hey, we should pause. We should talk about this in a little bit. I'm too upset to really be able to get past this right now. Let's set a time limit of 2 hours and come back to that. And that 2 hours is like, it's active. It's not
Right.
shutting down. It's not sleeping. It's not, dissociating on my phone and doom scrolling. It's what's going on, right? Doing that evaluation process and then coming back, circling back, picking it back up and trying to have a repair. And it may still be kind of sticky and you reach gridlock again. That's fine. Table it, come back.
Right.
So yeah, and I say that because that, the half of the conflicts that just like we have are because of that inner critic too, right? I can't receive what you're showing me about myself or telling me about myself because there's a part of me that really feels it, that I am this bad or I'm not good enough, and I can't have that conversation because I already feel that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how do we exist in a space where we are, as you put it, proactive versus reactive?
Right. And it's often the way somebody is saying something without intention, it's being received as like criticism or judgment, and then automatically putting that person on the defensive. I tell parents, if you're going to compliment your child, don't add but. Whatever the compliment is, you did a great job cleaning your room, period. End the sentence. Don't like, but there's a piece of trash over there, because then you
Mhm.
just wiped out the compliment.
Yep.
Now you've criticized the situation.
Mhm.
Better, you should go pick up the piece of trash, throw it in the trash can yourself, then point it out if they did a great job, 95%, 85%, cleaning up their room. The majority of that room is clean. They're not going to clean it like you do because they're a child. Be complimentary and end it. And we do that with so many things. And then you turn in what you're thinking is a compliment and is something nice to say, but you're turning it into
Yes.
criticism. and
Right.
that's how it gets received, and then it starts its own little battle.
Right. Right. And I think part of it too is like, sometimes we forget that they are little people. They are not on the same page as us, right? Like listening is a skill. It's not something that we are just inherently born with. And for some, like neurodivergent folk, right, or it's even harder. And so it is a matter of like remembering to compliment in the first place.
Yeah,
And it could be over the tiniest thing. It doesn't matter. Like, as long as we're leaving room for that to begin with, like, it doesn't have to be, long story short, it doesn't have to be this massive, amazing thing that my 4-year-old or
right.
8-year-old, 12-year-old just did. It could just be like, hey, I'm really proud of you for how you got dressed this morning and got in the car and, you know, thank you for that.
Yeah, appreciation goes a long way with
hmm
your partners, with your children, with your employees, whoever's like there. When you start appreciating people for their effort, they stop feeling invisible. They stop
hmm
feeling like they don't exist and nobody even knows that they're there and they might as well not be there.
Right. And then
Try appreciation.
yeah, and then the other piece of it is like, if we're not making space, conscious space for the compliments, because that's the thing is that I think as humans, right, we have something that happens that's hard or sticky or negative or challenging, and we kind of get wrapped up in it that we don't see the good. So there isn't always space or time to or awareness of I need to give a compliment or I should do that or it would be helpful if I did that. I think it's a matter of remembering that if we aren't leaving space for those compliments, right? And the things that really stick out and the things that we're making having a very loud response to, that child might grow up as you did with, I can't do anything right. What's the
Right.
point?
Right. And, it's take away they should do it anyway. They should do it. Why should I compliment them? They should do it.
Oh,
They did
yes.
do it. So just be complimentary and appreciative of them doing it.
hmm
Doesn't matter that they should, they did.
Right.
You wanted them to take out the trash, they did. And you're thinking, well, why should I say thank you? That's their job. Because they did. And they made an effort in helping and cooperating. So you should say, hey, thank you for taking out the trash. I really appreciate it. No problem. You
Yeah,
know, it makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
absolutely. Right. And then, here, look, are we acknowledging the things that we're doing right?
Yes.
Right? Or are we just so I have to do it? I don't have a choice,
Right.
you know?
Appreciating yourself.
Yeah. Like,
Yep.
wow, I just made it through that parent teacher conference. And
Right.
I didn't say the thing I maybe really wanted to
I
say,
talked really nicely.
Yes. Yes. I still said what I wanted to say and I didn't lose it too much.
Right.
I will say that. It's okay to sometimes you have to. I didn't lose it too much though.
Exactly. Exactly. And sometimes you have to be firm. Don't
Yeah.
have to yell. It's a
Right.
difference.
Right.
Well,
So,
I imagine this has been so helpful. This conversation has been so helpful to the people listening. Mention again your website. Well, I can mention it. It's collective-therapy.com.
yes. Yep.
Collective dash, there's a dash,
Yep.
not the word dash, a little dash.
Hyphen.
Therapy hyphen. There you go. It's a hyphen. Collective hyphen therapy.com. That's where you will find Alyssa. And reach out, guys. Reach out to Alyssa, reach out to me, reach out to someone. There's many people that can help. I mean, we are, of course, one of the best, but whoever you connect with, that's what's important is that you feel comfortable talking to who you choose to talk to.
Yes.
And
That's
it's fine to talk to a variety of people until you find that person.
right. And that's what matters most. I mean, what the research says, just FYI about therapy, is like that the number one predictor of success or effectiveness of therapy is the relationship that you develop with a therapist.
A
If you
hundred
don't feel
percent.
safe, it's not going to work.
A
Right.
hundred
And
percent.
so it may be a matter of having to date around a little bit. And I mean that like jokingly. It may be they have to shop around a little bit, and that can be challenging, but there's so many of us,
Yeah,
which is
there
great.
are. And, it's nice to get a recommendation, but also keep in mind that getting a recommendation doesn't mean you'll match with that person. Might mean your friend does, might
Mhm.
mean, someone else does. It doesn't necessarily mean you will. So have an open mind and realize that, oh, there's not a problem wrong with you if you just don't match with that person. You may not. We all
Mhm.
have our own little techniques and strategies and the way we speak and, stuff like that that may be great for you, may not be great for you. And we're
Mhm.
not going to take insult to it. We want you to find the best person you can find. So
Absolutely.
if you love hearing what Alyssa says and the work she does, reach out to her on collective-therapy.com and reach out and she'll set up a time to talk to you and you guys will go from there.
Yeah.
But Alyssa, I always ask my guests for one more piece of advice. And I know we talked about a lot of stuff. And if there's something you want to reiterate that's very important, do that. Or if there's something new you want to add to the conversation, I'd appreciate that. So what is the one more thing you would tell our listeners before we're off and we send them on their way?
Thank you, Celia. Yeah, because this one that I want to share really goes back to, I think, the inner critic, right? It is that message of my child is a reflection of me and the job that I'm doing, right? I mean, that goes back to the whole, like in psychology world, we call it the argument of nature versus nurture, right? Genetics and biology versus the environment. But the truth is that your child is, was, and will always be their own version, right? So, what that actually looks like is say that we're talking about an apple tree, right? Sure, all the apples are of the same tree, right? And that tree needs to be strong and it needs to hold the weight of the apples and it needs to be nourished. And, it is responsible for those apples growing or not, right? But regardless, the apples are always a different shape. There was a different shade, and the shade looks different, right? And they fall from the tree eventually, right? Like just like our kids, they grow up. Some of them fall right below the branch, and some of them roll further away. But at the end of the day, right, as long as we are taking care of ourselves, right, having nurturing and nourishing ourselves, those apples are going to be, healthy and progress to grow, fall off the tree, and then roll somewhere new and eventually plant some seeds somewhere else, right? But though your child is always going to be, they were born to be different from you. They don't have the same experience as you. They don't have the same feelings or perceptions of you. Sure, we are responsible for them, but they are not a reflection of you.
That's such a great scenario and easily understandable. Easily people can like look at that and go, "Oh, you're right about that." Because
Mhm.
we're all individuals and we should be allowed to celebrate our individualness, and it's great to recognize the gifts we all have. There is no duplicate you. No one on this planet is the same combination of you. You are you. Even twins are different.
Mhm.
People go, "Oh, you look exactly alike," but do they? Do they act exactly alike? No. And so it's important to remember, and that child that you're being a role model to, they are also seeing the world from their eyes. And
Mhm.
your two eyes, or four eyes, two per person, will never see exactly the same,
Yeah.
different perspectives. So such valuable insight. Thank you, Alyssa, for being here.
Thank you for
I
having me.
appreciate it. It was a wonderful conversation, and I hope whatever you guys heard, if there was something you heard valuable, that you put it into play. You try it with your own family, with yourself, and see how it can help you. And then if you need help, we're here to help. So reach out to Alyssa again at collective-therapy.com. That's where you'll find her. You know where to find me here at pumpedupparenting.com or dayofcalm.org. I'm here. I'm always here for you guys. And Alyssa, thank you so much for being here as well.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And for all of you, we are both very grateful for you taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us. If you found this valuable, please share it out to a friend. Leave us a comment on the podcast so other people can find the value as well. As always, guys, I wish you days filled with peace, love, tons of laughter. Life is funny. Don't take it so seriously. You're funny. Your kids are funny. Laughter really is the best medicine. And I'll see you here next time on the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Pumped Up Parenting Podcast. If this episode was helpful to you, please share it with a friend and leave us a review that will help others. Wonder why kids don't come with a manual? Well, wonder no more, because I wrote you one, and it's just won a wonderful Mom's Choice Award. Go to celiasbooks.com and buy your copy of Raising Happy Toddlers, as well as my children's books. I appreciate you being part of my mission to help 10 million parents stop yelling at their kids. Please be intentional and hug on those kids of yours. See you at the next episode.